Taking a moment to show you what's inside the box when you receive it. You're going to have your controller. And also inside you're going to have your EL inverter. This is going to attach to your instrument cluster and actually makes the AC voltage. You're going to have a bag with some hardware, some posi taps, foam, and a zip tie, and your harness that goes to your controller. Now I'll show you how to do it. You'll want a non-marring trim tool for cluster removal. You're going to take apart the panels for the radio as well as around the cluster. To get started, lower your steering wheel and give a good pull to the bezel in front of your instrument cluster. This will release all the plastic tabs holding the bezel in place, as well as help you get the bezel for the radio begin to come off. Before you can fully remove the cluster bezel, you'll need to pull the radio bezel off next. You're going to start at the bottom and then use a trim tool to help pry at the top. Be gentle, the plastic is very thin and brittle. Once the radio bezel slides out, you're going to remove your plugs and put it aside. The next part may take you a second. The cluster bezel and the top steering column cover are all integrated as one piece. So you reach behind and be able to pull the back of it up before the front comes up closest to the steering wheel. The rubber that's on the back will kind of feel like it wants to hold it in place, but it is loose and it just has to wiggle around a little bit. Once you have all 4 screws out of the cluster, you can flip it down and unplug all your connectors. Then take your cluster and put it on a clean work surface. Now we're only going to need to work on the back of the instrument cluster, so you're going to flip it over, but because of the large trip button, you're going to take your empty box and it'll help hold it in place. Now using a T15 driver, remove all 10 screws from the back and set it aside. Now the area we're going to be concentrating on is this little EL strip down in the bottom right hand corner. You're going to need a small pick tool, a pair of tweezers, something with a small sharp tip. There's 2 small locks on the front of this connector. You're going to put your pick in, either the inside or the outside, and release those 2 tabs to let that fold up. Once your connector is open, take the EL panel out and snap it back shut. Next, you're going to install your converter to your cluster. The wire should be facing to the left, the right side, and the bottom of your connector should be flush with the connector that the EL panel used to be in. Take your fingers and index it so that those sides are flush with each other. Give it a firm press, and then slide your EL panel into your connector. You'll also find a piece of small foam supplied in the bag with your T-taps. The foam should overlay the connector as well as a small bit of the EL panel. This foam needs to be in place to keep anything from ever moving. Once the back goes back on, it'll supply added pressure to keep everything in place. Now the back is ready to go back on. Take your EL panel and slide it through the large opening closest to the EL connector. Rest the cover on the back of the instrument cluster. Then loosely curl your wire up to the top of the white stepper motor that's furthest to the right. This will help pinch it in between the stepper and the back cover once everything is screwed in place and will prevent you from being able to pull the wire back out. Next, we move on to the body harness installation. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to show you this outside of the vehicle. But first, it's very important to know how to properly install a T-tap. We're familiar with T-taps. These are a little bit different, so I want to show you how to use them and kind of go over them first. The first step you'll do is if you take the larger portion of this off, you'll see that there is a spike that will pierce your wire, and you will slide your wire straight down the middle. There is no reason to use any tools with these, just a really snug fit. So next, you're going to take the back side off. This side is already tapped. And you're going to have your wire. Now you're going to have it very slightly stripped. There's not going to be a whole lot taken off of it. So you're going to put it on with the threads facing the open wire and just slide it over. Next, you want to take your wire and fray it. Then you're going to take your collet I'm going to insert this into the posi tap. Make sure you don't have any wire that's hanging out over the side. And then you are going to simply tighten it in. Make sure that you're not pulling on this wire at all or have anything pulling on it while you're trying to tap it. That can come out for a bad tap. So once you got it nice and tight, you should be able to pull on the wire. It should not come loose, and you should have a good tap. I'm going to show you on the bench here what your wiring connections should be for your controller. So when you're looking at it, you're going to have 4 separate connectors. This will be the most passenger side. This will be the most driver side connector. Connector 1, 2, 3, and 4 per the diagram and schematics. So first connection, on connector 2, you're not going to have any, so we're just going to move it out of the way for now. On connector 1, you're going to have your black wire to your VDLS controller. That will be pin 8. So your orientation starts at 1, goes across to 6. This is pin 7 and pin 8 at the bottom. It will be one of the larger wires. So this is your pin 8 connection and should be spliced in with your posi tap to your black wire. There are no connections, as we said, on connector 2. Connector 3 is our red wire. That will be on pin 11, which is my bottom right corner if I'm facing the connector. On the back side, you'll see it as a pink wire with a white tracer. That will go to your red wire of your VDLS controller. Then you have your CAN lines. On pin number 11, which is your bottom right-hand corner if you're facing your connector. This is your CAN low. This is a white wire on your body harness. This will go to the green wire on your VDLS controller. Then you also have pin 12, which is a white wire with an orange tracer. That will go to your white wire on your VDLS controller. This is your CAN high. Make sure that you've got good connections. These connectors make it extremely simple to be able to do. Now you're ready to plug everything back in. Once all of your body harness connections are made, you're ready to put the cluster back in. Hold the EL panel out to the right side of the cluster and make sure not to pinch any of the wires when you're installing it. Go ahead and insert all of your connectors and place your cluster back into place. We're not going to put any screws in until we've made sure that everything's working like it should. Keep your harnesses and your parts just folded over to the right side out of the way. Next, we're going to connect the controller. You're going to still have yours in your car. First, you need to connect your EL inverter to your controller. Then make sure your ignition is turned off before connecting your 4-wire body harness. Once everything's plugged in, turn your ignition to on, and your backlight should work like normal. And will work with all dimming settings. Then you can uncover the 3M tape from your controller and your EL inverter and mount them just above the ignition switch as shown in the picture. And that's it. Controller installation's easy. Cluster bezel, well, you get the idea. And yes, this is real time. Don't forget to plug all your stuff in on your radio bezel, reinstall it, be gentle with the vents above, and then set your clock and call it a day. Thanks for your purchase. Glad we could help.